Let's kick things off with a cold, hard truth. The world pays exactly what it thinks you're worth, and not a penny more. If you want more out of life, more opportunity, more income, more respect, you must first become the kind of person who gives more than they're paid for. This is the habit that built every true success story, from the factory floor to the corner office. And yet, it's the principle most people ignore. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why should I do more if I'm not getting more? That's the voice of the average, my friend, the voice of the employee who does only what's written in the job description, clocks out at 5 sharp, and wonders why life never seems to change. But here's the secret. Napoleon Hill discovered, life never rewards the minimum. It only opens doors for those who deliver the extra mile without waiting for applause. Think about it. The greatest leaders, the most trusted professionals, the people everyone wants on their team, these are the folks who consistently do more than is asked, who spot a problem and fix it before anyone else notices, who add value in ways no one can measure by the hour. They understand the law of compensation. The universe eventually catches up to those who create more value than they cost. Let me give you a real-world example. Early in my career, I worked with a young man named Tom. He was an average salesman on paper, but Tom had a different attitude. He never stopped at good enough. If a customer had a question after hours, Tom answered it. If a colleague was drowning in paperwork, Tom pitched in without being asked. At first, nobody seemed to notice, but as time went on, his reputation grew. Clients insisted on working only with Tom. His boss promoted him twice in 1 year. Why? Because Tom had mastered the habit of doing more than he was paid for. Here's what most people miss. The real reward for going the extra mile isn't always immediate. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, even years before the world takes notice. But the law always works, like gravity. You can't outgive it. So, ask yourself, are you waiting to get more before you give more? Or are you building the habit now, knowing that every extra effort is a seed planted for your future harvest? The first step is simple, but it's not easy. You must decide today to become a person of value, person who delivers more than they take. That's how the doors open. That's how the world starts working for you, not against you. Now let's get brutally honest. Most people spend their lives waiting for someone else to give them a reason to put in extra effort. They watch the clock, count the minutes, and quietly grumble that their boss, their customers, or even fate itself just doesn't appreciate them. But the real winners, those who rise, who get noticed, who build lives of abundance, don't wait for permission or applause. They make more than paid for their default setting. Let me tell you, this habit is not about being a doormat. It's not about letting people take advantage of you. No, it's about owning your own reputation and your future. When you choose to give more, solve a problem nobody asked you to solve, lend a hand before someone begs for help, deliver more quality than anyone expects, you send a powerful signal to the world. This is who I am. I am not average. I am indispensable. I remember a young woman named Julia who worked at a small design firm. Her title was junior designer, but Julia acted like a partner in the business. She'd spot things the boss missed, offer solutions to clients before problems exploded, and stay late to help teammates meet tight deadlines, not for overtime, not for show, but because she took pride in her work. At first, some people rolled their eyes. Trying too hard, they whispered. But it wasn't long before clients started asking for Julia by name. She got bigger projects, more freedom, and soon enough, her job title and her paycheck caught up to her contribution. Here's the Napoleon Hill lesson. When you make the habit of doing more than paid for part of your character, you stop competing with everyone else and start competing with your own potential. You set yourself apart not just in results, but in attitude. Employers, customers, and partners notice. And even if the rewards don't show up right away, the universe is keeping score. It takes courage to do more than is required. Sometimes it feels thankless, especially at the beginning. But remember, you're not just building your career, you're building your character. And the habit you build today will pay compound interest for the rest of your life. So, don't wait for someone to tell you what enough looks like. Decide for yourself that enough is never your finish line. Make excellence your habit, generosity your trademark, and watch how quickly the world starts making room for you at the top. Let's pull back the curtain on what really happens when you make this habit your way of life. At first, it can feel lonely. You'll see coworkers doing the bare minimum, getting away with it, sometimes even getting credit they don't deserve. It's tempting to wonder, why am I working harder? Why am I caring more? But here's the truth. Greatness never announces itself with fanfare. It builds quietly, in the dark, one extra effort at a time. Napoleon Hill said it best. Every extra ounce of value you give, every helpful answer, every unexpected follow-up, every detail you sweat that nobody asked for is a silent investment in your future. The results rarely come overnight, but slowly your reputation grows. People start to see you differently. You become the one others trust with responsibility, the one managers depend on, the one clients recommend when something really matters. Let me share a story. I once knew a janitor named Eddie. On paper, he had one job: keep the place clean, but Eddie saw his role as keeping the company running. He'd fix a leaky faucet before anyone else saw it, help new hires find their way around, even take care of a manager's dying houseplant. He knew everyone's name. When times got tough and layoffs loomed, guess who everyone rallied to keep? Eddie. He'd become irreplaceable by doing the things that didn't fit in his job description. Years later, he was promoted to facilities manager not because he asked, but because he earned it, quietly, day after day. Here's the secret. The habit of doing more than paid for changes you before it changes your circumstances. You become more skilled, more confident, more resourceful. You start to see opportunities everywhere, ways to help, ways to improve, ways to leave your mark. This is how leaders are made, not by title, but by the willingness to do the work others won't. Remember, the world's biggest doors are opened by those who carry the keys of extra effort. And every time you go beyond what's required, you're not just working for a paycheck, you're building a brand, a legacy, and a future that nobody can take away. So next time you think, it's not my job, ask yourself, is it my opportunity? Because the habit of doing more than paid for isn't just about work, it's about becoming the person everyone can count on. And that's the real fast track to success. Let's get something straight. Nobody gets ahead by blending in. In every organization, in every team, there are two kinds of people: those who do what they must, and those who look for ways to do more, give more, become more. Guess who the world remembers? It's not the folks who just checked boxes and went home. It's the ones who left the place better than they found it. Here's what Napoleon Hill would tell you. The habit of doing more than paid for is a mindset, not a job description. It's the voice inside that says, how can I help? How can I make this easier for someone else? What problem can I solve before anyone else notices? This attitude doesn't just improve your results, it makes you magnetic. Colleagues want you on their project. Clients want your number on speed dial. Bosses wonder how they ever managed without you. I once knew a young man in sales, let's call him Mike. Mike was new, green, still learning the ropes. But he had a simple rule: never end a conversation without giving the customer something they didn't expect. Maybe it was a helpful resource, maybe it was a personal check-in call, maybe it was just remembering their kid's name. At first it seemed small, but over time, clients started calling just to talk to Mike. He became the face of the company for dozens of accounts. When promotion time came, he didn't have to ask, was the obvious choice. Why did it work? Because Mike understood what most never learn. People don't remember the minimum. They remember the moments when someone cared enough to do more. This habit also does something powerful for your spirit. When you wake up every day determined to leave things better than you found them, you feel alive. You become the architect of your own reputation. And that reputation, once built, will speak for you in rooms you've never even entered. Now, don't misunderstand me. This is not about martyrdom. You don't need to burn out, say yes to every request, or become everyone's unpaid assistant. No, it's about the quality of your effort, not just the quantity. The extra mile isn't always about working longer, it's about caring deeper and giving smarter. So, next time you're tempted to cut corners or wait for someone else to step up, pause and remember, the habit of doing more than paid for is your superpower. It turns ordinary days into opportunities and ordinary people into leaders. Practice it with pride and watch how doors start opening some you didn't even know existed. Let's face it, doing more than you're paid for is rarely glamorous in the beginning. In fact, sometimes it feels invisible. You stay late to help a teammate, solve a problem before anyone else notices, or deliver a project ahead of schedule and there's no fanfare, no bonus check, maybe not even a thank you. That's where most people give up. What's the point, they ask? Nobody cares. But the truth is, the people who go the extra mile are quietly planting seeds that will grow in ways they can't yet see. Here's what Napoleon Hill would say: your efforts are never wasted, even if they aren't immediately rewarded. The habit of doing more than paid for builds a kind of invisible capital, a reputation for reliability, initiative, and leadership that will eventually draw opportunity to you like a magnet. Employers, clients, and colleagues may not notice every single extra effort, but they will notice the pattern. And when it's time to choose a leader, give a raise, or trust someone with an important client, they remember the one who always did more, gave more, and cared more. Let me tell you about Lisa, a young professional I once mentored. She made it a rule to learn not just her own job, but everyone else's on her team. When a coworker was out sick, Lisa jumped in. When a system crashed, she was the first to help fix it, even if it meant teaching herself a new skill after hours. For a while, it looked like she was just the helper. But when a management position opened, there was no question who would step up. Lisa wasn't just the most knowledgeable, she was the most trusted because she'd built her reputation on service. The lesson? In the short term, the habit of doing more than paid for may feel like extra work for little reward. But in the long run, it's the fastest, surest path to earning more, becoming more, and attracting success that can't be measured on a time card. There's another benefit too. This habit changes your own self-image. You start to see yourself as a person of value, a problem solver, a leader in training. You're not waiting for someone to hand you authority, you're preparing for it step by step. Confidence follows competence, and competence comes from practice. So, the next time you wonder if your extra effort matters, remember, the world is always watching, even if it's silent at first. Keep giving more than you're paid, not for the applause, but for the person you're becoming and the doors you're opening for your own future. Now, let's get to the heart of why this habit is so rare and so powerful. The world is full of people waiting for their big break, hoping that someday opportunity will knock and reward them for just showing up. But opportunity, as Napoleon Hill often reminded us, knocks for those who prepare for it, those who make excellence their daily routine, not just their occasional act. Doing more than you're paid for is an act of faith. It's believing that what you sow today, you'll reap tomorrow, even if you can't see the harvest yet. That's real courage, the kind that separates leaders from the crowd. Anyone can coast when the rewards are immediate. But real greatness belongs to those who keep going, especially when no one is watching. Let me share a lesson from my own life. Early in my career, I worked a job where promotions were rare, and recognition even rarer. Still, I made it my business to know the whole operation, not just my corner. I learned how the back office worked, how the warehouse solved problems, how customer complaints were handled. I volunteered for projects nobody wanted. For months, nothing changed. But then a crisis hit. Suddenly, the company needed someone who understood every part of the business. Because I'd already done more than my share, I was the only one prepared to step up. That crisis became my launch pad, not because I waited for a title, but because I built the habit before anyone else was looking. That's how this principle pays off, not always with instant applause, but with readiness for the moment when the world finally catches up to your effort. It's how ordinary people become indispensable, how steady contributors become natural leaders. Here's something else. The habit of doing more than paid for isn't just about career advancement, it shapes your character. Every time you go the extra mile, you build inner strength, the discipline to finish what you start, the resilience to handle setbacks, the vision to see beyond your current circumstances. Over time, these qualities spill over into every part of your life, not just your work. And let's not forget, this habit is contagious. When others see you quietly delivering more, it inspires them to raise their own standards. Teams perform better, cultures shift, and the impossible starts to look possible. One person's example can ignite a whole room. So, don't underestimate the power of unseen effort. Each extra step, each unrequested favor, each problem solved off the clock is a stone in the foundation of your future. The world will notice, eventually. But long before that, you'll notice. and you'll realize you're not just working for a paycheck, you're building a legacy. Let's be real. Sometimes the hardest part about doing more than you're paid for is the feeling that you're the only one. You might look around and see others coasting, doing the minimum, even getting ahead with less effort. It's tempting to think, why bother? That's where most people stop. But remember, the rarest habits create the rarest rewards. Napoleon Hill would remind you that you're not working for today's praise, but for tomorrow's opportunity. The extra mile is never crowded. It's where the future leaders, the most respected professionals, and the true difference makers are found. Here's a practical approach. Make a daily commitment to do one thing that isn't expected of you. Maybe it's mentoring a new team member, offering a solution to a problem outside your department, or simply anticipating a client's need before they voice it. These moments may go unnoticed at first, but over time, they add up to a reputation you can't buy. Let me tell you about Carlos, a quiet technician at a manufacturing plant. His job was to maintain equipment, nothing more. But Carlos took it on himself to document every issue, share tips with the next shift, and train newcomers on safe time, though none of it was in his job description. When a big promotion came up, management chose Carlos over candidates with flashier resumes. Why? Because he'd proven, day in and day out, that he was committed to the success of the whole team, not just his paycheck. That's the hidden power of this habit. It multiplies trust. People start to rely on you. When a crisis hits, you're the first call. When opportunity knocks, your name is at the top of the list, not because you demanded recognition, but because you earned it through quiet, consistent excellence. This habit also builds resilience. The more you give, the more you stretch your abilities. Problems that once seemed intimidating become routine. New challenges don't scare you, they excite you. You become the person who isn't just ready for the next step, you're already walking it. Don't get discouraged if results seem slow. The law of compensation may not be instant, but it is unfailing. Give more, become more, and watch as doors open that once seemed locked tight. The habit of doing more than paid for is your advantage in any field, any company, any stage of life. Make it your trademark, and you'll find yourself on paths others only dream about. Let's talk about the ripple effect. When you make a habit of going the extra mile, you don't just change your own life, you change the atmosphere around you. People notice, even when they don't say a word. Your standards become contagious. Others start to ask themselves, if he can do more, why can't I? Here's the Hill perspective. Every act of extra effort sends out invisible invitations for new opportunities. Maybe a colleague remembers you when they launch a new project. Maybe a former client calls you with a business idea because they know you're the one who always delivers more than promised. Success rarely announces itself in the moment, but it always comes looking for those who make themselves valuable before they're rewarded. Let me share the story of Tara, a front desk receptionist in a busy office. Her official duties were simple: answer phones, greet visitors, handle mail. But Tara took pride in remembering people's birthdays, keeping coffee fresh for guests, and organizing supplies so nobody ever ran out. She learned a little about everyone's job, just in case someone was out sick. When the company expanded, Tara was offered a major new role, not because she campaigned for it, but because leadership saw she was already acting like the heartbeat of the business. That's what the habit of doing more than paid for does. It creates a reputation that opens doors you didn't even know existed. You become the go-to persona, one people trust in a pinch, the one they turn to when something big is on the line. But let's be honest, there will be days when you wonder if it's worth it. Maybe you feel invisible. Maybe someone else gets the credit. Don't let bitterness creep in. Every extra step, every small kindness, every bit of value you add is another brick in the foundation of your legacy. Here's a practical tip. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do today that I wasn't paid or asked to do? Keep a record. You'll be amazed over time at how much you've grown, how many lives you've touched, and how many new opportunities start finding their way to you. The world will always need people willing to do more, give more, become more, be that person. Lead by example, and you'll find that recognition, advancement, and fulfillment are not just possible, they're inevitable. Now let's get to the heart of why this habit truly matters, not just for your next promotion or raise, but for the legacy you leave behind. The world is full of people waiting for recognition, craving validation, hoping that someday their efforts will be noticed. But those who live by the habit of doing more than paid for know a deeper truth. Fulfillment comes not from waiting to be rewarded, but from becoming a person who cannot help but give more. This habit shapes your destiny. Every day you choose to over-deliver, you're building a reputation that follows you everywhere, sometimes even before you arrive. Opportunities begin to seek you out. People speak your name in rooms you've never entered. Your network grows, your value multiplies, and suddenly the goals that once seemed distant are now within your grasp. Let me give you one more story. Years ago, I met a teacher named Mr. Lee. His contract was for standard classroom hours, nothing more. But Mr. Lee tutored after school, coached the debate team, and called struggling parents on weekends, not for overtime, but because he cared. At first, nobody noticed, but over time, Mr. Lee's students outperformed every other class. Parents lobbied for their children to be in his class. And when a district leadership position opened, Mr. Lee was chosen not because he applied, but because his results and reputation left no other choice. That's the real reward. You stop competing for scraps, and you start attracting the best the world has to offer. You stand out not for being flashy, but for being unfailingly dependable, generous, and passionate about making a difference. But here's the final test. There will always be moments when you wonder if it's worth it. When it seems like nobody notices. When your extra effort feels like it's going into a black hole. Remember, every act of service, every unseen kindness, every ounce of extra effort is a deposit in the bank of your own character. You may not see the balance right away, but one day you'll realize you're wealthier in skills, relationships, and self-respect than you ever imagined possible. The habit of doing more than paid for is the foundation of greatness. It's the mark of every true leader, every world-class professional, every person who's left a legacy worth remembering. Make it yours. Live it daily, and let the results take care of themselves. As we close this chapter, I want you to remember one truth above all. The habit of doing more than paid for is not just a tacticits, a philosophy, a way of life that will transform you from the inside out. It's the invisible force behind every story of real and lasting achievement. This is the habit that takes you further than talent, luck, or even education ever could. Each day you choose to give a little more, serve a little deeper, or solve one more problem than expected, you're investing in your own future. You're building a brand the world can trust, a reputation that opens doors long before you knock. Yes, sometimes it will feel like nobody sees your effort. Sometimes the recognition will be slow to arrive. But remember, life has a way of rewarding those who refuse to keep score. Napoleon Hill taught us that the real prize is not just in the external rewards, but in who you become through the process. When you make this habit your own, you become more resilient, more resourceful, more valuable to every team, every client, every community you touch. You stop asking, "What do I get?" and start asking, "How can I give?" That simple shift is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. And here's the final challenge. Don't wait for the perfect time. Start today. Look for one way, just one, to deliver more than you're paid for. Maybe it's staying a few extra minutes to help a colleague. Maybe it's offering a solution nobody asked for. Maybe it's simply doing your work with a little more care, a little more pride. Do this daily, and soon it will become second nature, a habit as natural as breathing. Over time, you'll notice something remarkable. Problems that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Opportunities you never expected begin to appear. People seek you out, trust you, and want to work with you. That is the compound interest of character, the return on investment for every act of extra effort. So step out boldly. Make the habit of doing more than paid for your signature, your legacy, your path to greatness. The world may not applaud at first, but the world will never forget a person who gives their every time, every place, for every person. That is how success finds you. That is how you build a life and a legacy worth living.